So you asked me, what is the Laffer curve? Now, in all honesty, the Laffer curve, as you may see, is my profile, but no, it's not. The Laffer curve is the relationship between tax rates and total tax revenues. And by the way, I did not name it the Laffer curve, and it's been around for centuries and centuries. In fact, the first reference to it I really know is in the Muqaddimah. In 1381, Ibn Khaldun described it this way: at the beginning of dynasties, tax rates are low and revenues are high. At the end of dynasties, tax rates are high and revenues are low. That's the sort of logic behind it. But let me, if I can, say, how much would you work if you were taxed at 100%? So that every time you go to the office, instead of getting a check, you get a bill. Obviously, you wouldn't work at all, and there'd be no work, but also the tax revenues would be zero. Now, that's this point right here on the Laffer curve. At 100% tax rates, no one will find there's any incentive whatsoever to work. They won't work, and tax revenues will be zero as well. Now, as you start lowering tax rates to 99, to 98, to 97, somewhere along the line, all of a sudden, you're going to find it worthwhile to start working, and you're going to see revenues starting to rise. The other point of the Laffer curve that's fixed is at zero tax rates. At zero tax rates, if there are no taxes, of course the government's not going to collect any revenues. We're going to have a lot of output, employment, and production, but there'll be no revenues, and that's this point down here. And again, at this point, if they start raising tax rates, as they start raising tax rates, what you're going to find is the revenues are going to increase, but they will increase at slower and slower rates, and these two curves will come at a point, the maximum point out here. Now, the key thing about the Laffer curve that makes it fairly interesting for politicians is to remember it's a pedagogic device, not an explicit measure of any one country. But what it does show you is that there are two tax rates that give the same amount of revenue. There's a high tax rate and a low tax rate. No country should ever want to be in that high tax rate range. I mean, why would you ever want a tax at this point where if you lowered tax rates, you collected more money, and you have more output, employment, and production? So this is the Laffer curve, which really brings together the debate about taxes. There are two effects taxes have on revenues. Number one, which we call the arithmetic effect. If you raise tax rates, you do collect more revenue per dollar of tax base. That's the arithmetic effect. But there's also the economic effect, which if you increase tax rates, you reduce the attractiveness of doing the activity, and you will shrink the tax base. These two effects, the arithmetic effect and the economic effect, always work in the opposite direction. In this range, the arithmetic effect wins, and you get more revenues by raising tax rates. In this range, the economic effect wins, which by raising tax rates, you actually get less revenues because you do more and more damage to the tax base. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Laffer curve. Thank you.